welcome to another edition of Postcards from the Pandemic. I'm your host, Bruce Barber. With me, my co-host and producer, Johnny Broker.
It's wonderful to be here. This is going to be an awesome one. These are good people we're going to talk to.
Yeah, so we're very fortunate. John, I actually want to cover something quickly first. As you know, when we record the postcard, we encourage having a delicious beverage. You can see our guest, who will be introduced shortly, has one. But I just wanted to point out that I do not read comments. I suffer from anxiety. So that's why I have been absent from social media, and I don't read the comments. Johnny Broker does, and apparently some hater was criticizing my beer choice. And like, how can you, Brian Virtue, how can you criticize a man's beverage?
It's not right, Bruce. It wasn't me. I'll tell you that right now. I could have told you what that label was before you put it on the screen.
I've been known to enjoy one of the
play on Bruce's anxiety, so it's, you know.
Johnny, why don't you introduce our fabulous guest on this edition? All right, so if you're following along, Johnny, we're losing you a little bit. And I love it when you do Zoom and you've got bandwidth issues, it says you're unstable. And when it does that, it says your internet connection is unstable. When something tells me, I'm like guilty.
Yeah, it's totally. It came up as unstable, so I'll just go again. So we were very fortunate to have the one, the only, the living legend, Brian Virtue, co-owner of Christopher Martin's Restaurant and Pub on State Street, New Haven, co-owned with Chris Vigilante. I would just like to point out quickly that Virtue and Vigilante are the last names of the two people that own the restaurant. That could be a restaurant on its own. But this is a great community location. Brian is a good friend and great people. I suppose I have to call myself a regular of Christopher Martin's. But Brian, introduce yourself.
Hi. Well, you said a lot there, John. I'm Brian Virtue. I'm one of the owners of Christopher Martin's. Glad to be here.
And Brian, one of the reasons we thought of you immediately is because, number one, we just miss being at Christopher Martin's together as we all quarantine. But we also, we think of you, we think of all of our restaurateurs, our small business people, and what a challenge this has been for those of you in business for yourself.
Yeah, it's unprecedented. Obviously, it's nothing we've ever gone through before. We've been fortunate. To go and take out, which is all we're doing right now, is always been a little bit of our business, part of our business. So we're relying off of that and keeping a couple people busy every day. But
Johnny and I like to ask everyone, so where were you when you first learned that this was serious? And, kind of what was life like at Christopher Martin's before that? And then what is life like now?
Well, I think the one part I remember just before this came down was I was starting to think that they might shut us down and close us down for business. And I mentioned it to some colleagues in the business, and they laughed. They can't do that. You can't just tell us to shut the doors. And I was thinking about, well, they can, because, we pulled a lot of permits through the city. And if they pull our permits, well, then,
No, let me just say this. I was one of those people. I was saying, you can't.
How dare you?
How dare you?
And I was thinking, so, and then about 10 days later, I think the order was, close tonight at 8 or tomorrow at 8 or whatever that day was. So long ago now, it seems,
Yeah. Really only.
So yesterday and so long ago, you know what I mean? It's funny.
So, I mean, one of the things that I love about Chris and Martin is just it's such a sense of community there. There's a good group of regulars, and we'll get to all the good work that you guys do in the community in a second. But, you know, I mean, the cast of characters that's come through that place over the years is just, I mean, it's a sitcom, it's a reality show. I mean, it's just all wonderful for the most part, people at heart, you know. But are the, you know, is that regular customer base really doing the takeout thing now?
I'm seeing a lot of regulars. You know, you're right, John. It is very much a place of community, and we're very fortunate that we have so many regular people that are thinking of us and taking care of us. And again, it's not, you know, open for business as usual, but it's, you know, it's hopefully going to pay a few bills and keep, you know, some of my staff with some cash in their pockets and stuff.
Yeah, and that's, you know, I mean, that's you guys do so many things right, you know, and I feel like one of them is your staff is amazing. I mean, I feel like in addition, I mean, the food's great, you know, the atmosphere is phenomenal. You got some good wines, which we like. But you know, it's the place where we mark our year, you know. It's great. Erin Carey has her Christmas Adam every year, and the whole gang's in there.
I have customers that have celebrated their 50th, 60th, 70th, and some of them are now, it's a big group. And some of them are in their 80s now, and someone, out of about a group of 20, we do all their major birthdays. So we see them 6 times a year for some kind of birthday party, and it's going on 3 decades now. Of past 3 decades now, you know,
and
almost
Johnny,
4. So
we should also talk about all the, you know, Johnny alluded to it earlier, but Johnny, talk about the charitable work they do.
Well, I mean, you know, we'll let Brian talk about it a little bit more, you know, because he obviously is the person that does it, deserves all this respect with Chris and the staff. You know, every Thanksgiving they do a white tablecloth dinner for, you know, people that otherwise wouldn't get that dinner and give food. And Chris Martin's Road Race is one of the funnest Sundays in New Haven, I think. It was a really, really good time, you know, and that's a Toys for Tots race. And I mean, any group, when we'll talk about some of the things during the pandemic that have come around, you know, they're always the first people to raise their hand and say, how can we help? So, Brian, I'd love to hear about some of those events and, you know, how kind of came around and what it means to you guys.
Well, you know, yep, we have 2 signature events, John. Like I said, we feed the homeless on Thanksgiving, and the road race that we sponsor to raise toys for New Haven kids are our 2 biggest, you know, charitable efforts during the year, you know. But we put both of those on with volunteer help for the most part. You know what I mean? It's, you know, there's some expenditure of this, that, and the other thing. And we have to pay some professionals with the road race, obviously, to put that on. But the vast majority of those events are done with totally volunteer labor, whether it's my staff coming in on an extra day or just friends of the restaurant that we've developed over the years. And they're big events, and it takes hundreds of people to put them on. And we have to turn volunteers away every year for both events. So
that's why it's good that you know, it's why it's good you guys opened the restaurant, because if Johnny and I did, we would just be taking the money all the time. There would be we would just any opportunity.
Well, there's not that much. There's not that much to take, Bruce. So you know.
Now, so you know, and this kind of leads us into the next thing. You know, we're all, you know, dealing with this insanity, and you know, but it's so real, and you know, we all have different ways of coping with it. You know, kind of, how are you doing? You know, how are you handling this?
Personally,
yeah,
I'm doing okay. You know, I miss seeing people on a regular basis. You know, that's probably the toughest part. But my family's healthy. You know, and you know, like financially, I'm confident I'll weather the storm one way or the other. I'm you know, I feel bad for others, not for me. So, you know, I'm okay.
Yeah, that's, you know, that's interesting. I'm kind of finding the same thing as you know, I spend a lot of my time, of course, I'm self-centered, so I'm mainly thinking about me. But but I do consider myself so fortunate, and I do spend a lot of time thinking, well, if this is difficult, for this white coastal elite guy, what's it like for the people that are more challenged in their circumstances, and there's just so many of those stories around the world, really.
Yeah. We can talk to Chris Martin specific though, Brian. I'd love to hear about. I know that the first responders have some groups have come to you and arrange meals for people. I know that the rugby club, the president Nikki currently is a nurse in Bridgeport Hospital, and they've done some things, raised some money to feed some people. But you've done a couple of great things in the last few weeks. I'd love to hear a little bit about it.
There's been a number of things, John. Every day, we're in our 5th week now of delivering to the COVID ward at Yale. A group of 16, staff up on the front lines at the hospital. We're delivering. We started dinners and then they switch us over to lunch. I think they're getting a lot of volunteers and a lot of donations like this. But we've been delivering to feed 1 meal a day up there, all paid for by the Soho Neighborhood Association, run by Lisa Seidlars. It's a great neighborhood. Block watch. Is a brief term to explain it. Community here around the restaurant, and they've raised money to help pay for it because we are getting paid for it. We're getting a good deal on it. But it's paid for again by the volunteers in the neighborhood.
No, that's absolutely amazing. Yeah.
It's kind of cool. You know what I mean? Anyway, it's neat to at least go down and they're very, very appreciative down the hospital. They're great. They come down with their cart and they pick up the food, and we're making taco day or prime rib day or chicken pot pie or whatever. The chefs are kind of having fun with it.
Hey, may I make a suggestion? This is something that just came to my mind. It would be a new thing. It could sweep the world. But how about, this is just off the top of my head, how about something called like Taco Tuesday? Would that be something?
Wow. Did you just come up with that?
Yes. Just, this is what happens. These ideas, they just come into my head.
What would you serve?
Burgers.
On Wednesday.
So Brian, Johnny, go ahead.
I want to pump up the to-go business there. I know my family goes to Christopher Martin's. They cater a lot of our family events. It's been very, very good to my family, and I think we've been good to them. So that's the rest of the family, maybe not me, but there's great to-go food there. You can get the dinner menu as well as the pub menu. And one of the things, just the reason I want to point out, Brian, besides being an all-around good guy, is a Culinary Institute of America trained chef. So their menu is very, very good, and very the best rack of lamb you're going to get. So you should really check out the to-go food. But Brian, this is an argument that Pete Pereira and I have all the time. If Pete's going to order a burger to go, he orders it if he wants. The medium, orders it from the box in the way home. So A, tell me Pete Pereira is wrong, and B, what food travels best coming out of Christopher Martin's?
John, you went a little digital on me there. So I heard something about the burger, and you and Pete Pereira have a.
We always discuss what food travels well, and he thinks you have to order burgers a couple of layers down and cooking wise in order for them to be properly cooked when you get home. So I just wanted to hear, the best thing on the menu, people getting to-go food.
I won't argue with. I can't say Pete is wrong there. There's something referred to in the cooking business as carryover heat. So when you pull it off the grill, it's still cooking for a few minutes. And now if you put it into an enclosure, it's going to cook even a little bit more. So 2 levels? No, Pete, maybe 1. You know what I mean? If you want it medium rare, order it. Rare, that type of thing.
He's an opinion.
Yeah, and people really, we do, And it really does have to be a good way to, to support all our local restaurants and everything, and I think especially as we do start, coming out of our houses and stuff, that's important. So we always like to kind of close these out on a positive note. And, this is really kind of the, when we first started thinking about doing something like this, the idea was that, when stuff really goes south, have you found something that you really consider to be kind of a glass half full, a silver lining?
Bruce, I know it's out there and it's common. I think this is going to change a lot of people's attitudes and ways of being in for positive ways. I don't think the pandemic is horrible, but I think it's a bit of an enlightenment for some people, I think, for society as a whole. What ways I've yet to figure out yet, but I'm sure there's going to be a lot of good that come out of this.
Yeah, I have to agree with you. I mean, that's the sense I've gotten is, Johnny, we've talked about this, that there just seems to be in general this awareness that we are interdependent. We're an interdependent species. So go to Christopher Martin's, right, Johnny? Get some takeout.
Definitely get some takeout.
And then, Bri, you get to reopen for outdoor service on the 20th. Is that true?
That's what I believe that to be true, Bruce. Yeah, we're planning for it.
Okay.
The governor hasn't called me personally.
And the other thing I just want to point out before we go, what's interesting about this whole moment in time with Zoom and Bri, you're on your iPad, Johnny, you're at your apartment. We've had a few, you get your bandwidth issues every once in a while. Here's an okay boomer callback. We're all like max headroom now. Remember that? Yeah. But it's all clear now. We got good bandwidth. Cheers, gentlemen. Be well.
Cheers.
Stay safe. Stay home. And then go to Christopher Martin's when they let us out.
I'll drink to that.